welcome back to Sarah Loves to Sew with me, Sarah, and my daughter, Katie.
Hello.
Today we're going to show you how to make the Ladybug Pincushion. So in every pack, this is the finished article, quite a few pins in. I'm actually sewing that long full length coat behind me at the moment, and it's got pockets.
Nobody needs to know.
It's lined. It's got a lot of pins. So this is the Ladybug Pincushion. You get your instructions in the pack, and if I just turn the camera down here, you'll be able to see what you get. So you get the instructions, and you also get the felt pieces. So the two body pieces, the head felt piece with the eyes, the safety eyes already attached, and you also get a pin with 6 ladybird spots. You get the thread that you need to sew the pincushion together. So we have one short thread, and you get your needle and your stuffing. So if you take the short thread to start with and just thread the needle, so these needles have got nice large eyes so you can get the embroidery thread through, but they're also quite sharp, so do be careful of the point, but they're sharp enough to get through the felt quite easily. Just tie a knot at the bottom of the short thread to start with, and all these instructions are on here. So we've got the needle threaded, and on the underside of the felt, using the running stitch, sew the ladybird's head onto the top body piece. So the eyes are holding it in place already, but all you do is you come on through, and using running stitch you sew that in place. So running stitch, oops, I've unthreaded it, is a really simple thread, the most basic, simple stitch, the most basic one you can do really, where you go from one side, move along a little bit and down to the other side. Now a good tip when you're teaching youngsters to sew is that when they pull a needle through, get them to hold the needle where the thread is. So when they pull it through, they're not going to pull the thread out like I did on the first go. So you can use, these stitches don't have to be perfect, it's literally just getting the kids used to the idea of going in one side and then the other side. So what you might find initially is they might forget which side they've gone through and start coming up under there, and it all getting a bit confusing. If that happens, all you've got to do is just take the needle off the thread and unthread it, and then you can carry on as normal. So I'll just quickly show you, that's what you do for the head piece. So it's all the way around so that his little cute face is sewn onto his body. And the next thing that we have to do will be to get his spots on. So we're sewing all the pieces, all the appliqued felt pieces onto the top piece of the body before sewing the 2 pieces of his body together. So there we go, almost all the way around, and we're there. So if you've got enough thread left, you can carry on sewing the spots on now. So you've got different size spots. I tend to put the big spots up at the top, go down in order. They don't have to be symmetrical on this one here. Can't see because he's pinned so much, but I sort of varied the location of the spots. So it's quite nice if there's a little random pattern. It doesn't have to be really uniform, but I'll just use one of the larger spots close to his head there. It's totally up to you where you want to put his spots. Just try and leave a line, a centre line down the middle, so you have 3 on this side, 3 on that side, because we're going to be sewing a running stitch line down his centre of his back as well. So this is running stitch again, just up one side, down the other, like so. And it's just really quite good practice of hand sewing, so you've got a bit of coordination needed, and it's just good hand-eye sort of dexterity things going on. If you run out of cotton like I'm doing now, I'll just tie a knot with this one here, and then I'll get a new bit of thread in a second. So just tie it off so that it doesn't come undone. I'll do a double knot to make sure that, so you might need to help them with their knots. It really does depend on how good they are with their hands. Get my little scissors. We can just snip that there. And then I did give you a longer piece of thread to go with the rest of the spots. So if you just don't pull it too tight, if it gets a little bit tangled, the trick is to try and keep it loose and don't pull it into a tight knot. There we go. So just thread that one again. When you're threading a needle, make sure one piece is longer than the other, but I wouldn't have this piece too short either. And you can just put a knot in the end again, like so, and then finish off where you left off. So we've got all the 3 spots down one side and the other 3 down the other side. If it gets a bit long, sometimes it does get a little bit tangled, in which case just shorten that one a little bit, and so forth. So you carry on doing this until you've got all 6 spots in place. I won't show you all the spots, just for a bit of time. I'm going to show you the next step. So next, sew a line of black back stitch down the middle of the ladybug's body and trim the thread. So you can, if you like, get a pen or a pencil and draw a line as a guide where you want the back stitch going, and you start by just coming up from the back. You can put a knot at the bottom of the thread, or you can carry it across like that from the stitching. And back stitch is where you have a continual line. So unlike the running stitch, you will actually go up further away from the stitch, and then you go back to the bottom of the stitch, and you come up further away. Make sure it doesn't get too tangled. You can do that by just pulling it through slowly. I was pulling it a bit too quickly there. So you go down, and you come up a bit further. So you do a row of back stitch. Doesn't matter how big you want your stitches. You can do big ones, or you can do small tiny ones, as long as you get the effect of a line along his back, or her back, his or her back. I don't know if you get male and female ladybirds. Anyhow, almost there. Once you've sewn the line along the back, you are then ready for step 4. So you can finish the line, and you can just finish it by stitch on the back, and then you can just either grab a little bit of felt, make sure you don't go through to the other side, or just knot it on the thread itself. So the back of sewing always looks quite messy, but that's where all the work is sort of hidden. So you just can tie a little knot and then trim the thread. And then you'd have had your 6 spots sewn on, line down the back, and the next thing that you can do is, using the red thread, we're going to sew the front and the back together. So tuck in any of the loose threads, use the pin to pin it into place, and it's said to leave a small opening. So it's up to you where you sort of leave the opening or where you start, but basically, what have I done with the needle? Wherever you start is where the opening will be. So this time thread with your red thread. It's already got a knot in the end of this, and I'm going to start towards the back here near his bottom. So we're going to do simple running stitch all the way around. So that's going in the felt from the same side that the needles come out of, just a little bit further along. Hope you can see this on the camera. And you just carry on sewing all the way around, making sure you're getting both layers. It doesn't have to be very right on the edge, but it does need to be quite close to the edge. If you come to a little bit of cotton like that or thread, you can just tuck it in. Keep it nice and neat. Don't show the workings on the outside. We just carry on sewing around. When you come to the head, you just make sure you grab the 3 layers with every stitch. So it'll be a little bit tougher to get the needle through, but you can just, with a little bit of thread showing there, squeeze them together and get the stitches in. So you carry on doing this all the way around, and then the last thing that we need to do will be to stuff it. So, because I've sewn where I've pinned, now I'm just going to move the pin around to that bit there. Yeah, that's a bit close. Get my stitches in the way. So this is the sort of project that I used to sew as a kid, and it just got me really interested in making things. And once you understand how things are put together and made, you can be really creative then and come up with your own patterns or your own ideas, or you can buy patterns or get free patterns online for all sorts of things: cuddly toys, soft toys, clothes, bags, whatever really that's made out of fabric. So we just carry on going round, and then we're going to leave that small opening at the bottom, ladybug's bottom. So almost get there. So when you're doing this, you're using both hands all the time, and you have to really keep your eye on things. If the needle gets a bit twisted, just straighten it out a little bit. And then we can keep pulling it through. Up one side, down the other. Right, I think if you just leave it there, then you can see that's where we need to stuff him. So with the stuffing that came in the pack, it's a good idea when you're stuffing soft toys, pin cushions, what have you, that you don't try and stuff it all in at once. So there's a little bit of an art to it. So if you get little balls of the stuffing and really with your fingers get it in right around those eyes, because these safety eyes have got bits sticking out underneath. So you need to push it right to the ends to start with. And we want our ladybirds looking quite plump. So we've pushed the stuffing through right down to the head first, and little bit by little bit, just make sure it gets into all the little corners. This ladybird's quite simple to stuff. If you're stuffing a toy or a teddy, it's quite tricky sometimes. You've got to make sure you poke it right down to the paws, through the arms, so that they're all nice and stuffed. So once you've got all your stuffing in, all you've got left to do then is sew up the final bit. So to make the sewing easy, you try and push all the stuffing away from the seam that you're sewing, so that the seam can lie nice and flat. So push the stuffing away, squeeze the seams, the sides together, and then just pin them closed. And we're sewing running stitch around the edge, so we simply just carry on from where we left off. So we go all the way around, up one side, down the other, making sure that the cotton, that this bit doesn't get caught in the stitches. If it's looking too long, just pull the needle up so it shortens a little bit. And each time remember to grab the cotton in the eye of the needle, because what can happen a lot is when you pull it through, you might pull the needle away from the thread. Then you have to keep stopping and rethreading the needle, which can be a little frustrating, especially for little ones. So there we have it. Once you've finished sewing around the edge, hopefully your little ladybird will have all his spots on, like mine, and will act then as a really cute little squishy pin cushion. So you can just tie the thread off at the end, trim it, and then rearrange the stuffing so that you get stuffing to where you've pushed it away from on the end there. And there you go. You have your little pin cushion ready to hold your new needle and pin for your next sewing project. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy your ladybug